And we are, I believe, live. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Ironclaw. We've been off for a while because, well, it's all my fault, let's be honest. Had computer problems. Basically, my own machine was burning up every time I tried to go on Discord for some reason. And it was like, yeah, and the computer was failing. And I was like, hey, you need to get a new computer. And I managed to put one together. And it's working fine. It has a little bit of tweaks that I have to do, so probably this week or next week I'll fully assemble it. But for now, it's doing fine, and here we are.
Yeah, we did it.
So last time we were in the city of Triskelion, chasing clues about the missing tablets. That foretold of not foretold, actually recorded. They're not going to tell. I guess they can foretell if things go badly enough. Things can repeat themselves. Of a massive natural disaster, or seemingly natural disaster, that swallowed the center of the Isles. And our protagonists are here to try to find them. They're also trying to make connections in order to help their side in the war and turn the battle against the young usurper king. So in that combination of things, they're here. As you can see, we don't have two of our members. One of them is dealing with the fact that they're professional work-related issues. So not issue, actually, good opportunity for them. So congratulations on that. And another one is dealing with a personal issue. May include fire and flame, but they seem to be fine personally. Just that they won't be available to. So this because we only have 3 players, the season might be a little truncated, and we'll see where we go from here. Let's start with Arclo. Let's start with your character. Oh, actually, let's start with the only introductions to the characters that we have, as we should, as per rules. Characters, introductions, and motivations, and all that, and goals. So Arclo, let's start with your character.
Yes, I'm Ironclaw. I play Spencer McDougall, the calculating raccoon thaumaturge. His motto is "The best secrets are those no one knows you to keep." Now let me go scroll my sheet and check my goals. Retrieve the tablets, stop Luke, and convince the nobles to help the crown and hinder the usurper.
Theta.
I am Harmon Todero, or just Harmon, because no one ever says the last name. In fact, I shouldn't either. Donkey, mule, soldier/marine, personality stoic, motto is you need to know you're in for the fight of your life. My listed goals are to stop Luke, go to collaborate and retrieve the tablets, and convince the nobles to help us and hinder the enemy.
And finally, last but not least, Griffin.
Hey, I'm Gregory Varkin III. I'm a lion elementalist and a noble. My motto is that I'm fit to be the king, and of course my goals are to stop the conspiracy, retrieve the tablets, and to convince the nobles to help the crown and harm the usurpers.
So let's start with our friend Spencer. Last time you managed to capture a shade, summon it, capture it. Where do you have the shade? Is the shade in your staff? It's a piece of paper. It's a knowledge in your mind that you go, okay, I know the name of the shade, and just.
It's kept in his tourmaline headband, which is the charm that he got as part of his cognoscenti trappings.
Mm-hmm.
So anytime he needs to summon it, he'll put his hand over it and, I guess, concentrate on it.
And then
it'll appear with him, yes.
Yeah. Normally, when you have this kind of relationship with shades and stuff like that, they just remain dormant. But this particular shade is very strong-willed and very single-minded. It's a soldier shade, so it has that as Chris has recorded. And we named them Sergeant Major Lee Remus, standard of the King's Guard. Very long name. And every so often, it's almost like an echo you hear, like, for example, early in the morning, like 4 or 5 in the morning, it's like you hear like a shout in the distance of like stand to, which it's an order for a unit to get ready for the day, right? So you're hearing these sort of echoes, and they're not your mind. You're sort of like hearing very distant kind of thing. It reminds me when you went to the corner of the courtyard. It's almost as if this shade is just going through the motions of its former life or its collection of lives that it created as a thing, and you get a sort of a memory of it. But as you're doing that, in a couple of days that you're here and you're doing the investigation, you sort of start getting the fact that this shade is of course, like, oh, shades are a composite. And they're not really a composite of one time of the sort of the King's Guard, as you know them. They are a composite of generations of leaders. It's almost like when you look at two mirrors facing each other and you see sort of the reflections going back. That's how it feels like, right? It has a very specific name and a specific personality, but it's an amalgamation of this stuff. And as you're, sort of visioning your dream state, or between being awake and asleep, and the way, because you're training and opening your mind, you're having these interactions with the shade, and you're looking at a time where you look at a sort of a young warrior, in fact, a group of young warriors who pledge themselves to a king, an old wolf, and you get this vision of them fighting across a field, and there is, on the other side, all the warriors, but behind them it seems like a small conclave, not of druids as you know them, but of shadowy creatures that are, you get a sense of very strong magic out of them, but they're very shadowy, almost shade light as well. And it's this fight, and then as these forces come together, fight and stuff like that, eventually it devolves into 1-to-1, and your version of your shade basically is having, people are coming at him and he's taking them on and defeating them 1-to-1 until he's finally wounded. And instead of standing there retreating, he actually pushes forward, and tries to get to these sort of shades. And from there, you get an image that the shades are standing near standing stones, and there is a sort of a stone circle, and in top of the circle is a ball, like a round object. But it's this one that seems to be floating in the air, covered in ancient runes that you don't, similar to, but not exactly the ones you saw on the roads. And when that happens, one of these shades sort of comes in front of this face and sort of wipes it out, like, everything turns to dark. So you have that image, right? So apparently this shade, or the composition, goes all the way back to a time before the current kings, of men and women and different species who share that ideal of the King's Guard. That is, they have pledged themselves to be servers in service of the king. And this is one of the visions you see, sort of the earliest visions. And it kind of tracks with the stuff that you're doing. What are you gonna do? Are you gonna do about it? Are you gonna share that with somebody else? Are you gonna try to take notes? What's now that you have this sort of information in the?
He'll take some notes. I guess have to buy a book to put them in. But yeah, he'll keep a journal about whatever the shade is trying to show him.
I mean, this is Treskelion, so finding a book here, well, expensive, because it's paper and all that. And it's possible. You can find almost anything here in Treskelion. So, and even sometimes even cheaper prices, you could find it somewhere else, being a sort of big merchant city. Meanwhile, Griffin.
Yep.
Harmon's brother.
Yeah.
He's kind of identifying himself as such. In a very oblique way. He has sent you a letter.
Ooh, letter. Yay.
Yeah.
I'll open up and read it.
He says that it's basically a list of people here. Different people that you can meet. That perhaps you can pitch your take on how to deal with the situation, and maybe look for backing. So it's about 5 names. Some are lords and ladies, other are merchants, but all of them are people of significance, except that none of them are members of the church.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, Harmon's younger brother is staying away from the church. Probably the same reason that Harmon is, right? He's a traditionalist. He believes in the goddess and the land, and does not believe in sort of this fancy light business and afterlives and all kind of things. So he's staying away from that.
Of course.
So let's start with the first person on the list. First of all, are you thinking of approaching anybody here?
Well, I have this list. The idea is that I'm going to try to approach all of them at some point. I'll definitely send letters of introduction their way, something saying like, "I'd like to meet and speak with you. We'll make friends," and or generally otherwise try to arrange some way to talk with them so I can try getting across my message.
Mm-hmm.
So part of my early morning is definitely going to be based around just writing letters to everybody.
You have 2 names on top of the list, which is Lady Bianchi and there are 2 ladies, Lady Bianchi and Lady Rishi, Ricci. I'm going to put them in the document of so ladies.
Good.
Bianchi and Rishi, and they sound from the old families here of the older ruling class. And then from there's 3 lords, Biset, Boshe, and Karen in the list. Lords. Biset, Karen, and what's the last one? Couture. The last one, there's a note that he is of recent elevation. Literally, as his family, as the name suggests, he used to be, someone who has come of money because they now have an inn on the silk trade that is coming from the Far East.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's something actually. In fact, when you notice it, that's something that's not in the Isles so much, is that more and more of the ladies around here are using silk as part of their garments, right? At least the ones that are very rich, right? The average people cannot afford it. It's a very expensive item. I mean, you know what silk is, your experience with it, but it's very rare. But the fact that there's more of it here, enough for to be a fashion statement, is something you take note very quickly.
Right, a substantial amount of trade.
Yeah. So all the others are supposed to be ladies and in good standing here from the different families or clans. Let me give you a good idea of some of the families that are involved. I think he finds from all the ones from Artois, the Bisclaret, the Lorgue, and the Rinaldi. None from the Felon or Felan. The 2 ladies are from the Rinaldi, and the gentleman one of each of the Avoirdupois, the Bisclaret, and the Doloro or Dolorue. If I'm pronouncing that anywhere close to the actual French. So yeah. So he's managed to, I mean, someone who's been here probably months, years, dealing with the business of the family. So he's made some contacts. You can choose to engage them in any order you wish. Yeah, and you already sent the letter of introduction, but of course they'll wait for another letter saying that you want to meet. Right, you're the one seeking audience with them, right? And also you're the foreigner, so unless
So I guess while I'm here, so these are his contacts, and obviously they're on the list because they have some ability to be persuaded. But I'll have a question of what might I know about them, their families, or how much they might be like in on supporting the war rather than trying to end it, like us.
you do know that just like it happened in the Isle, there's there's been sort of a turnover, right? Technically, um, the Rinaldi are still in power, especially in the city, but other, I mean, particularly the Abbot Dupois have sort of basically, their overall power has waned and gone to the background. The king, the High King here, is not as active as he is in the Isles, right? So it's more of at least the feeling that you get is more of a king in title number.
Right.
So people are more, the local lords and local families are more independent, right? Although the Rinaldi in Triskelion are very important, and particularly the ones attached to these two ladies, right? They're very active in the trade. You might feel in that if they're doing services to support you is because they don't see the war as something that they want. But exactly why wouldn't they want to? I mean, war can be profitable, so why was it that they might oppose it? The Harmon's brother, the younger Harmon has not told you why exactly.
Right. So I'm more or less just kind of going out on a branch. And in this case, I'm still, of course, sending out mass letters, which will, of course, say, like I was saying, I'm from here, I'm interested in speaking with you, I know you're this and that, and I'm this and this, and, it'll be a great time. And I guess, given kind of what I know then, from what you've been talking about, maybe I'll try to focus on the non-Rinaldi ones first and see maybe where their attentions lie and try using that in the future.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll try responding to them first, or maybe they'll respond to me first. We'll see. I'm trying to keep up like polite company, and sending out the letters seems to be the way to do it.
Yeah. Rickard is the younger. I said Harmon, but that's not the name actually. So my apologies. He's the brother. I think you the first you get is from Lord Couture. He actually is seem to want to be the response to your letter energetically, right? He's like, oh yes, I received this letter. Someone from the Isles, of course. And he asks you where can you meet, and sort of tons of correspondence of subjects that you might like, etc. Right? He politely asks you for the type of species that you are, so that he gets you the right food, so he doesn't offend, right? Etc. Etc.
So good and polite.
Yeah. The rest, they basically send markers that they have received your letters and they are available on the whenever you believe them to be possible, but they're not overly friendly. They're being strictly polite, the sort of high nobility kind of thing, right? They're not giving much away. The only one that seems to be very effusive, at least in the way it's written, is the Couture.
Then that seems to be the one to attend to first, then, of course. So I'll definitely keep up the correspondences, but things seem to be moving along, so let's try meeting with Couture. I'm sure there's a few nice places in town we can go meet and talk and have a good time.
Yeah. As you you come in, the Couture actually are a common cat. Which is very interesting for someone who is of, well, I guess recent nobility.
And which family was Couture again? Specifically,
he was from. Let me check again. He was from the Biscleret.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. And he's there, and actually, when you come in, there are several of these common cats. So he seems like a sort of he's like with a group of people, like he's the kind of talk about. They talk about the the friend who is in university, who has a lot of family friends, and they hang out, sort of extended clan kind of thing, and they're all there drinking their their milk, I I suppose. And their cream, creme de la creme. And they're there. And when you come in, he sort of bows and sort of kind of dismisses everyone else. And they have this table and it's kind of on the corner. It's like, and he gets up, it's like, my lord, how can I assist you?
Lord Couture, it's a pleasure to meet you. Of course, I'm from the Isles, and I've been ever so interested to speak with the men and women of this fine island and city.
Mm-hmm.
And so I suppose we'll go ahead and start with some polite conversation first, and I'll try working him out to see like what's his deal, what's he interested in. I'm curious about him, of course, and
You
I'll
can roll a gossip and
Yeah.
A mind gossip, and depending on what you're trying to do, you can use nobility or you can use academics, depending on which angle you're trying to go. You know what, to inform him about the politics. You can do academics if you're trying to, sort of create a bond between the two of you and as nobles, etc. Remember that you're in a foreign land, so you don't really have a lot of legal standing here. You're a foreigner, right?
Right, but I'm of the same class as he is, of course.
Yeah. Actually, if we were doing comparison, he's a little below you because he's recent nobility and you're an older class. But you kind of level out because you're a foreigner and he's a local, noble.
Right.
So
So let's set in nobility because that definitely makes sense here. I'm not necessarily doing a negotiation right now. That doesn't apply right now. I'm just learning about him.
Yeah, you're getting a feel for who he is and
Let's see.
what his
And
station and all that.
you mentioned academics. So I hear the Miss Claveray.
It could be one or the other. Unless you're doing a history check on him, right, on the Bisclarets. That could
right.
work. But if you're trying to sort of trying to use the history of the islands with the Isles with displays or going into the politics of the Isles and to explain them, that might not, that's what you usually use heavily academics, right?
Okay, in which case I'm probably sticking to gossiping, of course.
Yeah.
So I'll have 2d6 and a d12 to roll with it then.
Mm-hmm.
Not the best talker, but I can talk. I fortunately have gossiping carousing. These people are out drinking their cream. So I'll re-roll the 1 and see if I can get anything nice for it. That is at least 1 success.
Yeah. With that success, you get that he's amenable to your advances. Like you get the same feeling you got from there. You don't get a lot of information about his background, etc., other than what you already know. Right? I mean, you sort of very like you're having a conversation, you're trying to read him, but you're not asking pointed questions. So, it's sort of like, okay, everything seems to be checking out according to the information I have, but you don't really get more than what you already know. Except that he is eager to engage with you for his own reasons, which we haven't found out yet. So if you want to really find out, you have to sort of dig in and maybe even ask point blank. Yeah.
Okay. So, well, I at least figure out a little bit, and we're having our polite conversation, and I go, well, there's just a small amount of business that I'm here for, of course, and I've told you a bit of it already. There's, of course, the war that's happening over in the Isles, and it's such a terrible thing, truly, for such a rebel king to try to rouse himself, but I don't foresee it as being too terrible of a problem, supposedly, so long as he doesn't continue to receive aid from these pirates of his. Oh, truly terrible things, honestly.
Oh.
It's
and when you say pirates, you're like, pirates.
Yes.
Pirates are always a problem. Yes. We have had some problems ourselves with pirates on other side of the world, as it were. The locals like to try to intercept our ticks, silk being very important, and also some of them feel that silk should not be taken from their lands. It's a patrimony of theirs, and some even seek to not so much rob us, but to burn our ships. So I sympathize. I sympathize with you. Yes, and piracy is never good unless you're the pirate yourself, of course. And I am a a well-renowned businessman. That's how I made my fortune here. And war, some people might believe that war brings glory and all that, but they never look at the price. Who has to pay the price, both in gold and in lives?
Indeed, and truly it weighs heavy on my heart to see people suffer during these times.
Mhm.
But times will change, and one day the war shall end. I'm in short order. It would be my belief. But during such times, of course, the silk here is fantastic, and there's so many goods. I could see there'd be quite an open market in the Isles, provided, of course, that the war makes things easier to transport from here to there.
Well, certainly with pirates, it would be difficult. I would not
Mhm.
want to have my shipments, try to reach all over to the Isles, only to have them, robbed by someone else or
Indeed.
pillaged.
And the Isles does have its navy and our firm Grand Admiral at the head. Hasn't lost a single battle against a pirate in his entire career. Can you believe that?
Hmm.
Truly, he's an amazing man, if nothing else. But such as it is, he ends up busy with this war. But once the war is cleared up and all other things aside, he could be, of course, made to guard the shipping lanes between here and Triskalia, or the Bisclaveret directly, even.
Oh, that's very interesting. Yes. Hmm. Perhaps I could talk to some of my fellows and see, get some money, some supplies. If the war goes a certain way, then perhaps we would have open markets for ourselves. I understand that the people of the islands are very what's the word I'm looking for? Provincial. But you know, uh, if one trades in good faith, right, as we do out in the east, then I don't see a problem. Once you respect the local customs and get the right people to translate and the like, right? People see that you mean that they win when you win and you win when they win, then perhaps this could be it.
Precisely. There's always room for an honest man at another port.
I believe that, well, it's always good to make one more coin. It is better to make 2 coins tomorrow than 3 today. Because the day after that, you also still make 2 coins versus the 3 that you made today and not never again. I hope it translates well. It's very difficult.
You have a dizzying intellect.
Yes, it's a saying that we have. It doesn't translate as this, of course. And I hope you understand.
I'll have to mark it down for myself. I'll have to use
Yes. Yeah. And see, he keeps going on, and he
Mhm.
seems interested, right? He seems
Yeah, I put out a little bit of honey for him.
Yeah, you get to read out. You got some more pointed questions. That he is again. He's upcoming. He's now noble. He's in noble, but he's very much of the merchant prince category. People in
Mhm.
Triskelion, where he's rising among the ranks, but still has connections to the merchant class, especially the new maritime merchant class. So he's a good bridge, right? He has some influence with the nobles in his family, right? Because he has coin. He's making them money, right? He's making them
Mhm.
money, and that's always important, right? But at the same time, he's not too high up yet. So he's not he's somebody who can pass along your message, but not
Right.
someone who can go, okay, this is what we're gonna do, right? He's not a decision maker outside of his own business in his own areas, right? He's
Right.
more a person that you want to cultivate for what he said in the future, right? So right
Mhm.
now he can add your voice to yours and give you an in, but that's about it as far as this individual goes.
Mhm. Still, having the message carry is definitely good. So, what else would I need to necessarily do with him? He understands that there's good profit for trade. He could even get preferential treatment, and so could the Bisclaveret in general, honestly. And of course, I hear the Bisclaveret have their own university as well.
They do indeed.
Indeed. And the Isles has been working upon theirs, but I believe most of our faculty are from Triskalia, from the university right here in the city. And of course, there have always been questions of foreigners and loyalties. I dismiss such things. Academics are like myself, or it doesn't matter. Learning is learning. But I imagine an invitation or a hand extended to Bisclaveret scholars would be accepted.
Mhm. Once you mention the scholars and the fact that they come from here, let me see if this works for him. Yes, he mentions, I have a nephew. I have a nephew he's very scholarly. He's very good with the numbers. I want to get him into the business, but first, he seems very reluctant. He seems as very dull, not to his keen mind. So I'm thinking perhaps he can go to a foreign land and cut his proverbial teeth on sort of meaty studies and the like. And after a while, he get that out of his system. He can come back and say, "Hey," and if he's over there, then maybe he can be a good business person to deal point man for you, right?
Perhaps he'll make a few friends, a few contacts, all the better.
And if you know about, you seem like a university person, man, I suppose. I don't need you to insult. Perhaps you can have him some letters of introduction when things are more common.
Of course, I could always introduce him to my old professor. Such a nice old man. I doubt a single person could be dissatisfied with him.
And we can pay. There's no problem whatsoever. You can tell your professor that his costs will be fully covered. He will not be a burden to anyone. He's also he's very shrewd. He keeps himself. He doesn't spend too much money. He's very good man, good man with coin. That's why I want to get him into the business. But first, the more he knows, the better. Of course, one should not stifle a powerful, sharp mind like his.
If I see him around, when I'm back in Corwin, I'll be sure to take him for a drink. Maybe his pockets will be loose afterwards.
He's here in Triskelion. He hasn't departed yet. I want him to go.
Right.
There.
I mean, in the future, of course. Once all is said and done.
Oh, of course. So essentially, he's offering you that if you promise to help his nephew in the near future, right? A year or so from now, not too far, because he'll go do something else. Ben, he's willing to put a word for you. Do what we already are bargaining over. But again, he's limited. Useful, but not. He's not the key that would actually open. He's more like a doorbell than a key. That's sort of the.
He's still the first thing in line.
Yeah, he announces your presence, but he actually can't get through your door just yet.
Right. So the hopes, of course, will be that this goes down the line, and maybe I get some feedback from that, and that'll be good. But still, he seems like a wonderful person, and I'm having a good time with him for now. Then maybe I'll ask about a few of his contemporaries and other merchants and what everyone else is doing, because I do have 4 more people on this list, and I'm kind of curious what they're up to as well.
That will also be another gossip room with the ability. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll go ahead and give that another roll and see how far we get with it. When it comes to just talking about other people, 3 successes.
Yeah.
But no, I'm sorry, 2.
2. That was a near success. I know the referee's not here, and I don't want to slag on him, but the fact that the book says it's 3, the way it's worded, like, success is over 3. It's like, just say it's 4. Just say the target number is 4, dude. The first time I read it, I was like, what? But once
I've done a bit of transcription recently. I'm just like, it'd be a lot clearer if I just say that.
Well, I think it's more understood that greater than 3 is an easier symbol to read than equal to or greater than 4.
Yeah, gotta save the ink too.
Yeah, but not grammatically, syntactically, you say target number 4. You save yourself, like, you're trying to explain it from the point of 3, which makes perfect sense. I mean, if you but it's sort of string out. Don't say in a paragraph what you can say in a sentence.
Yeah. Oh,
have you read the flight rules?
I know, but that's what I'm saying.
I also want to point out that Ironclaw is itself the second edition of Ironclaw and came out before all the clarification that gets built up later in like Myriad Song and the like. So it is itself finding its ground.
That's very much true.
Come back for Ironclaw 3rd edition, everybody.
Let's hope there is a 3rd edition.
All right.
I would get it. So yeah. What do you get? You got 2 successes. You got 2 families. He points to you because you're talking about war and all that. At the contact you have with the them, and he says that's Lord Karen, and also points you at the connections with the Rinaldi, and that's Lady Rishi. He says basically Karen is someone who's very military minded. He's an equine. Actually, she is an equine. Very military minded. Doesn't has strong connections to the church, but is not a member of the church. And also, he's concerned. He has a pet peeve, and that pet peeve is mercenaries and pirates and their ilk. Right? He does not trust mercenaries. Does not trust, sell swords and the like. He's someone who is very big on personal and family loyalty and loyalty to the crown and all that. And so that might be an in with him, right? That if you can paint this as a place where a lot of mercenaries from Triskelion and from this region are coming in, getting experience, making their fortune and all that.
Just imagine if they come back to your continent as veterans.
Yeah. He doesn't like that. On the Rishi family is that he says essentially Triskelion is there's a division between one. This is why Couture is very important, because in many ways the city itself is divided between the nobles and the guilds, right? And he's a good bridge between them. But there is a movement in the city from certain members of the Rinaldi to sort of not do away with the guilds, but sort of put the guilds in their place.
Ooh,
right?
Yeah.
They're like, you know what? We're tired of this sort of division of labor and all that. This is our, Triskelion is our great project, our great city. This is our place. It's sort of the gateway to the Rinaldi reestablishing themselves and making sure everybody knows it, right? Through coin and the gun or the sword if need be, but certainly the coin. So the idea, there is a conflict between them and the guilds, and well, technically there are no, for example, and I know mercenary guilds, right? A lot of the guilds use mercenaries, and they're seen as a competition. And Rishi is the kind of person who wants to, and when he talks about Rishi, she talks to them as more of a rival, not between also because of their different families, right, different houses, but also because he's more of a merchant and closer to the guilds. Well, she's very much old-fashioned nobility. He just wants to have direct rule as much as possible, right?
Right.
And her take would be that whoever's making these moves is threatening her power base. It could be the guilds, it could be somebody else. You don't get the read from him is that you don't get that she actually is behind this or knows about it. But she knows about the war, right? But if you were to tell, hey, somebody's using this for their own purposes, whatever they might be, that might be an in with her, right? But she is very conservative, very much of the old guard here, and difficult to approach. So that might be an in, but because he's very reserved and very guarded, even more so than most nobles.
Yeah, I'm trying to fully understand what do I need to say directly about that in I know where the mercenaries come from.
It's less about military power. It's more about overall power, right? Somebody is profiting. Somebody's profiting from this. Somebody's getting something out of this, right? And she's not getting a cut of it, right? And she's afraid that she is. She might be afraid or perturbed about the fact that things are happening beyond their control, the control of her house. This will suddenly come back to hurt them, or just somebody gets stronger or better, right? What if the Isles fall to whoever is trying to make this power play? How would that boomerang to them, right?
Yeah,
in one way or another, right?
Just making a couple notes there. So, yeah, well, that's definitely harder to get into, but I could definitely slowly build up to that. So that's good. That's good.
But she is higher in the totem pole, right? If somebody would speak to the renowned, at least in the rally of the city, as saying, this is what we need done, it certainly would be her.
Right. So we're climbing a bit of the ladder here.
Yeah.
Well, still, I've learned something about Karen, and that definitely seems like a good place to go next. And I'm more than willing to give a little toast to cream here, and good business up ahead, of course.
Yes. And he goes to you, and in fact, as you're leaving, he actually gives you a gift of a bottle of wine. Vintage is about 5 years old, so it's not a bad vintage.
So I'll go ahead and say fine vintage wine.
Yeah, as a sort of an invitation to continue business, whatever it happens to be. Very eager to have that business going.
Okay. So that's one nice big bit of noble talking for me, and well, I got a bit of this to go. I can only assume Rickard is getting us the information we wanted, so me continuing on this path seems like the thing to do. And I just had to ask, so what's Spencer going to be up to?
Well, you were busy talking to those folks, huh? I can't really think of much to do with Spencer at this moment, other than maybe doing a little help with that research project he funded at Dunwasser.
Yeah. You're going back and forth and talking to the people there. Do you include in your research your recent vision?
Yes.
Okay. Make a roll for me, please, and that will be academics and whatever skills that tie with magic as well as mind.
All right, let me just get my sheet up so I can see what my scores are, because I didn't make it macro for most of my skills. I just made it for like combat stuff. D8. So mind, academics, and supernatural?
Yes.
Well, that's a good roll.
That's a very good roll. More of the research that you do is that kind of magic that is being described here doesn't happen as much. Usually the felon are the ones who deal with, and they're the ones who have the druidic tradition here in this part of the world. But they have the tradition, but they're also very sort of cloistered, and they're their own version of druidism, and they don't share a lot of information with other people. But again, what's called geo effects are important, right? And when you bring up the idea of ley lines, perhaps this device or item or something could be used to manipulate them in some way.
I guess Spencer would have also been thinking that when he first saw it, that it was a hub of some kind, like multiple ley lines had been meeting there.
Yeah.
But if it's used to manipulate them, that's even stranger.
I mean, it could be both, right? They could manipulate them because it is a place where they meet, or some other thing. Also, you also find an entry on sympathetic magic. Now, this is something actually it was something so simple that you're like, of course. Sympathetic magic is basically the idea that you want to make a magical effect, especially using like a wand, something like that. You use an item that makes a mental link between that and the effect. So if you want to say cast fire magic, like Griffin does, they may have say a ruby tipped or a red crystal at the end of their wand, right? Because fire, red or orange, right, depending on what they want to do, that sort of thing. And looking back at that orb, um, there might be a strong connotation with the earth itself, right? That also part of it is sort of the sympathetic magic of, we are creating in a small form that which we want to project into the world, right? Um, you don't get anything on the shades or the people that seem like shades to you in your mind that were around this orb, right? That's
Right.
probably something that's not here. Because there's very little on the history of the Isles themselves, especially the more magical aspects of it. But they're certainly doing the research, right? They're sending people out. They're in contact with the church, etc. But it's they have most of the information they have is of course of their own country and their own magics and the like. So yeah,
Right.
and so that's only so much. But you sort of come up with that. It's like you have a eureka moment. It's like, of course, sympathetic magic. Of course, they would have something that would kind of represent what they want to do in some way. And so that's it. Yeah, the Earth itself, the globe, if you will. I don't think everybody thinks that there's. Well, people have traveled far enough here that they know the world there is a sphere and not a flat Earth. But not everybody believes that.
In the midst of the Renaissance, any sailor would probably say, like, yeah, of course.
Yeah. So.
Well, in Earth's history, it was the Greeks that figured it out by looking at shadows at different latitudes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's that. So yeah, it would be known. So yeah, you in your mind, that idea of a globe, which has some rather interesting implications, because it might be something eventually could be far more reaching than the Isles, perhaps. It's a possibility. And, rather dark one too.
Yeah, I think it's about time to mention this to Gregory and the others who actually know more about magic.
Mm-hmm.
This might be something else we'll have to be looking for. Could do with the tablets in some offhand way, but that's a conjecture at this point, so we shouldn't really put too much stock into it. Just look at it as a possibility.
So we continue on the list. Harmon, as you're traveling back and forth with Griffin and as his bodyguard, you meet your erstwhile brother, and he seems reluctant, but he seems to want to talk to you for some reason. Are you are you stoic enough that you sort of block him off, or do you accept his sort of invitation to talk? How do you react to that?
Well, he's a noble, isn't he?
Yes.
So I have to listen to him.
He says, I don't know how much you know about the family, but you'd be surprised to know that the family knows quite a bit about you. Father has been keeping an eye on you for some his own reasons, I suppose. He heard about you and the tournament. He even reached word here. I got a letter from friends saying that someone had won the tournament, the grand tourney. Only before I got the news of the war starting, of course. And while they never mention you by name, the description fits what I knew. Also, you might know that father is he's not doing well. He is getting on years. He is galloping, as it were, throughout the Isles. It's catching up with him. Were he to recognize you at some point, say in his deathbed, that would put you in a very interesting position. I mean, you do have elder brothers. You're not the oldest, but you're much older than I am. That's for sure. Perhaps it would pay for you to visit him when you go back. I mean, I don't know what you will want to tell him, if anything. To be honest, if I were in your shoes, I would tell him to fuck off. As an opening statement, because I've been giving a lot of thought of the idea of my father not recognizing me. And the old man and I have had their differences. That's why I'm here, in fact, very far away from home. Were you to talk to him or listen to him, whichever you want to do, if you want to do it at all, there might be some benefits. And before you ask or even think why I'm getting out of this, simple. I'm very good at what I do here, but I love my home. I love the Isles, where I was born and raised. I want to go back to my family. I know you by reputation, but not personally. But what I've seen is that you are at least as intimidating and a presence as has been told before. Your reputation certainly precedes you. Now more than ever, we need someone like that. If father doesn't see it that way, and I do. Maybe the youngest, but I'm still blood. I will speak for you. Now, if you don't want to do anything with us, I will not mention this ever again. That's entirely up to you. If you think this is something worth reclaiming, you'll know what to do. Well, good day. And that he sort of, when he says good day, he's sort of like, oh, I said it, it's like you don't see, like, yeah, he's, he had to, try to buck up the courage to actually face you like that, and it's like, and he nods to Griffin and to Gregory. Good day, sir.
Of course. Good day.
And he just walks away.
Once he's gone, I'll slowly turn to Harmon. Like, oh, I'm not one to butt into family matters, but I mean,
Good.
the least you can
I'm
do is say
glad.
goodbye. There's a book I could get you. Conversation starters.
Can't read.
Icebreakers. I'll read it to you.
I'll pass.
I'll read it out loud in your presence, and you can't avoid it then.
So that happens. So who are you going to tackle next, Griffin and Gregory?
Well, we have Karan, and I have a very good in on him.
Karan lives in a house on the outskirts of the city, near the riverbank. And so you send a letter. He says, he's very open on the afternoon, right? As you're coming in early, and takes you about a day or so to get there. He is coming in from the field. He actually has a small troop of soldiers that guard his estate, and apparently he takes takes personal charge of them, right? That he's a soldier, right? It's his troop, and he's the commander as well as the head of the house. He says, would you excuse me for a second? I need to take a bottle of water and wash off some of this dirt. I'll be right back.
Of course, take your time.
Yeah. And 5-10 minutes later, he comes in changing clothes. The clothes he's wearing is well made, but good tailoring, but simple, right? A shirt, some slacks. He's not.
Yeah, he took the first replacement out of the closet.
Yeah, he's not very much of someone who likes to, goosey up himself, very well dressed and like that. He invites you to his study. Like, well, I'd like to know what brings someone of your caliber to this faraway land. To
Well,
meet
quite
me
a
of all
many
people.
things, of course. I had heard, of course, of your military mind, and I can see with the way that you manage your troops outside, you definitely have quite a talent. I was wondering if perhaps it wouldn't be too forward to ask maybe your opinion about how things are in the Isle. I can tell you the news that I've experienced firsthand, and maybe we could share what we think of the situation.
Let me see. Oh, he's got to. Yeah, that's a pretty bad roll. He basically listens to what you have to say, but finding it's kind of hard because he's not used to the kind of terrain and conditions. So he has a lot of questions to explain. In the way the way the military terms that you use are used it basically come from the language of the Isles, and that seems to be a barrier. Like it's like somebody explaining things in English, about positions and flanks and all that, talking to somebody speaking German or French. If these languages had actually never shared, or more like someone who speaks Latin, right? So
it's El Circle. I guess in your language it would translate to the circle.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
right.
there's a lot of that going on.
So it's
Goofy stuff.
So that happens, and so that's But once you sort of, it takes you a while to explain. Now he starts. After a while, he starts nodding. We're like, So once you get that down to explain what's going on, he says, "Well, Monsieur, my soldiers are not for hire. I am not a mercenary. I am a servant of my house and my king."
Oh no, of course. I would never think to depart you from your duties. Such things come first and foremost. I know just as well as you. I of course work in the service of my own high king, and I would never derelict my own duties just for money or anything sort. I would never besmirch your honor in such a way. But it does bother me those who do. As I've described the situation, quite a number of people fighting on the rebel side are mercenaries, and it troubles me to see them there. I can't imagine the sort of things that they do otherwise, or where they might go next, and it troubles my mind to think about it. What it might happen if they were to succeed.
I heard some reports that people are hiring lots of mercenaries, especially in Triskelion. I
Truly?
may have some names that you can point to, perhaps something you can do on your own to influence this.
Oh, such would be
But
generous help.
the problem is, let's be honest, Monsieur, what do I get out of this?
Well, I would hope winning this conflict, at least to the legitimate authority, would be enough in its own. But of course, as I mentioned, I worry about what these mercenaries might do afterwards. If they were to succeed, if this rebel force were to win this war, to come out with truly their own bright minds, their own experience, come back as veterans, where do they come from? Where will they go next? What further conflicts will they inflict upon the world? Truly, it's an evil in the making.
Men of arms without honor seek always conflict for their own advancement. Still,
And it does come to my attention that I had heard a rumor of a Lady Rishi, and she too is worried about the number of mercenaries continually hired out here in the city itself, of between the guilds, I believe, some in need of constant protection. Do you think they would come here? It seems there's a market.
when we said that, he says squints and like, it's very dangerous. No, Monsieur, I don't see this. As far as I know, Rishi hates the idea of like, one thing we do share is the fact that we want loyalty above all to her house, to her lord, her ladyship. I doubt she would risk hiring mercenaries to do this. They're so easily being bought by someone else, especially now. No. doesn't seem right. However, if she is concerned about this, well, there could be a point to talking about. Do this. If you visit her, if you visit the lady Rishi, would you be so kind as to raise this concern with her that I share this concern? I want to, and then come back to me and report on her reaction. I want to see what happens.
Scenarios and come back and tell Karan how she reacted. Oh, there we go. Marking that down. And I'll sort of scratch my chin a bit and go, such is a matter that I do wish to speak with her at length, and if nothing else, I do perceive myself as a judge of character. If I speak with her, I'll return to you. That I can promise. And perhaps if I do...
Because if you were to convince her that it's in her best interest to stop these, monsieur, then perhaps he looks around almost like if somebody might be listening on them, right? And he goes, inter-house cooperation is something that has to be done very carefully these days. We under Rinaldi don't see eye to eye, but perhaps if you are to convince her that this is something that needs to be doing, then perhaps we could. You understand that you would be the going between to arrange this, of course.
Of course.
Then
I understand completely.
Yes, and perhaps if this works out, then we'll see what we can do.
I see and I understand. But you did mention some other names.
Such as?
Well, I mean, you said that you knew of a few. Is that something you would share upon doing this?
Yes, I know people who are agents who go around and hire people. They're very careful, and so technically they do not break the law. After all, hiring mercenaries is not illegal. It's Triskelion, as long as, of course, you're not pointing those mercenaries at the of the law or of the king, the rulers therein. Which is bothersome, but it is what it is for now. Perhaps in the future things will change. And when you say that, he kind of smiles a little bit, right? Like, yeah, if he had his way, right? But that's for another day. None of your concern, I'm afraid.
Of course, I'm just a stranger in foreign lands. What happens here, perhaps is better left to those who live here.
Exactly. So perhaps do this for me. Do this favor for me, and if depending on what she says and returns, I could help you. In fact, we could even cooperate on this, as strange as it is. But I cannot act or give out information without, something in return, and this would be the thing in return this year.
Of course. In which case, maybe at this point I'll go ahead and pull back from the seriousness for a moment. Just have a gentle conversation with him for a while. I'm also here to make friends. Maybe he has the time for that.
He is, he's a gentleman warrior. He talks about, surprisingly, he talks a lot about poetry. He talks about, but again, most of the poetry and stories are, sort of chivalric romances that celebrate war and knighthood and stuff like that, rather than the more sort of soft-pedaled, romantic as opposed to romance aspects of it. He may actually says that he can share some books with you. Oh no, he doesn't. He's not gonna.
No, of course, I wouldn't. I have to return them.
Very heroic stories and romances about different knights in the service of the Ironclaw, right, and their things they've done in the past and stuff like that. So yeah.
So yeah, he'll share some of that, and I'll probably share like a few of Harmon's escapades and say like, truly our greatest knight and all that. And yeah, so we have some friendly conversation. I think it's good to leave it on that. So, well, we have 2 down. We pull back. We have 2 people we don't know quite a lot about. We have 1 person we know something about, but I don't know what it would take to convince her about the mercenaries, which is also the goal of going to speak with her on Karen's behalf. Where I also assume Karen, while saying he wants to tell Rishi that he's concerned, I guess in the court setting, I'm not necessarily supposed to imply that they're working together because they're opposing factions, right?
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, so I had to be subtle about that. So I do have to dig up more information, I guess.
I mean, you do know that they are agents that are openly. He basically admitted that agents openly recruiting mercenaries, and that those probably are recruiting mercenaries and even pirates, and not only at on land for at sea for this war. So yeah, so you already know that. That's a good piece of information there.
Right. So I could, of course, come in and say, like, well, as an investigator, I've found tell that they're mercenaries who'd been hired from this continent. And then I don't have to reveal that Karen said anything at all. Okay. So, I mean, that seems like the way to do it.
So yeah, she has a sprawling mansion. Actually, the Rinaldi essentially own entire blocks of the city, right? Especially in the old city, for the extended family. So one home sort of, shares a backyard or a front yard with another home, right? So it literally is the old the Rinaldi compound is sort of the old suburbs, like the old concept of suburbs, which was sort of in within the city, sort of parks and stuff like that. That's within the city itself, as opposed to be on the edges. That's kind of like what the Rinaldi are in Triskelion, right?
Of course, they have their own gated community.
Exactly, and so getting to her house, she's not like. Well, I mean, many of the houses are front facing to streets, but not all of them. So getting to her house would mean that she would have to sort of navigate this. But you do a roll with nobility, a will. This will be will, nobility, and what else could you? Are you using the fact that you're an investigator? You're not officially of the government. So the law.
No, I don't have that kind of authority here. I'm in a completely foreign nation.
Okay. Yeah.
But I am noble, and I'm trying to get my way in. I have to pretend I'm as important as possible. Presence would make sense then, right?
Yes, very much so.
So let's go ahead and do that. So we have a D8 plus a D8 plus a D12. So this is a pretty good dice pool for this. I'm here to make an impression that I'm big, I'm important, and I'm definitely noble enough to be here, of course. How dare you?
Mm-hmm. I don't know D8 because you already have 2 contacts within the nobility, so you can name drop them as well, even though they're not from the same house.
Okay. So I guess I could be like an assist D8. Like, oh yes, yeah. I've talked with other nobles in the city. I'm not a complete stranger. These people would vouch for me.
Mm-hmm.
So blame them if I do terrible things. So let's go ahead and give that a go. And that is a straight roll.
Yeah, I know.
I've stolen my luck back, Ark.
Not only do you secure an invitation, you secure an invitation to essentially a garden party. A garden party that connects several of these houses, and the middle is a garden, and they basically have a tarp and everything else, and that's where they're doing a huge festivity. It's supposed to be like a birthday for somebody. In fact, they're doing a thing that my family has done, which is sort of this particular month they're doing all the birthdays of all the kids who were born this month.
Right, put it all together, one big extravaganza.
Yeah, and so when you come in, there's cakes, and there's gelatin, and there's all kind of very, a lot of sugary treats, which are expensive, and a lot of stuff. And you see kids running around different ages, from like as young as 2 to as old as 10 or 11, right? Which usually the age of adulthood in the Isles starts around 7, which is sort of the medieval, there were kids and there were adults. There was no teenagers back in the day.
Yeah.
So here you can see older children, like 10 or 11, are still running around like little kids, right? So it's the idea that the rich can afford to, have their approximation of pre-teenhood at least. and so they're running around and stuff like that. And you see Rishi is let me see who Rishi is.